Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1, also live on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is ETV Ghana. You can share your thoughts, your views and your comments with us this evening, even as we discuss a very, very important issue. We are concerned about the Ghanaian economy. The government is striving to rake in revenue. But if the government is going to make money, it would be as a result of the existence of companies in this country. That's where the taxes would come from, and that's where the government is going to have its revenue from. But with a situation where the monetary policy rate is making it virtually impossible for companies to borrow from the banks to expand and to grow, with even the concerns that is coming from the minority in Parliament, especially the Honourable Keso Atto-Forson, hinting that there's a possibility of people losing their jobs in the year 2023, what steps should we be taking to ensure that this does not materialize? The IMF is also in the equation, but tonight our focus is on entrepreneurship. How do we create jobs? How do we turn things around for our economy? I was reading an article suggesting of the fact that the IMF is negotiating on behalf of Ghana to ensure that our debt burden we get some relief. If that happens, then maybe we can smile. But if not, we'll have to go through the mud and go through the process to ensure jobs are created and people get the jobs to do. That's our focus tonight on Fact Sheet as we look at the Ghanaian economy, how we can pick ourselves up from where we are and create jobs and create employment for the Ghanaian youth. Even the young ones who are hungry to start the jobs, where do they look for the funding from in order to start up? That's our focus tonight on Fact Sheet. I encourage you to stay with us and share your thoughts with us, even as we take a short breather. And when we are back, certainly, I'll introduce my guest to you. Do kindly stay with us. And welcome back to Fact Sheet live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1. We're happy to have you as we have a conversation about our economy, job creation, revenue mobilization, and then as well how to empower the youth. We will do a bit of politicking as well, because the gentleman we are talking to is a multifaceted individual, and so we'll talk about all of these issues. I'm joined tonight by Mr. Benjamin Kofi Kwashi. He's the group chairman of Allied Consortiums South Africa. And we're talking about the Ghanaian economy and how we can empower the youth to build their own businesses and how the government can also get us out of the economic quagmire we are in today. It's good to have you, Mr. Kwashi.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm hoping you're doing well.
Very well. Good evening to you and good evening to our listeners.
All right, so let's talk about you and your assessment of the Ghanaian economy from where you sit. How do you find Ghana?
Well, I think it's no mincing words, like you said. It's quite, I always say it's a scary situation.
Okay.
Our economy is not doing well. We can't deny it. And I think that we, as a nation...
All right, I believe that I would just have to pause for a second and then inform our viewers and our listeners that our social media handles are very much active, and so you can share your thoughts, your views and your comments with us on the subject matter tonight by going to our Facebook wall and looking for ETV, or going to Instagram or YouTube and looking for ETV, so you can share your thoughts and your views with us. Now, this has to do with the youth, this has to do with all of us, and so these comments definitely would have to be an integral part of the conversation. So if you have any comment at all, please do kindly put it in our Facebook wall, and then I'll read it so that Mr. Kwashi can attempt to answer these questions for us live on the show. So that's by way of you engaging and interacting with us tonight on the show. So back to you, Mr. Kwashi. The state of affairs of the Ghanaian economy from where you sit in South Africa.
Well, I think our economy is in a dire straits, and it's a stress level that it's affecting everybody. I think when the economy is good, it affects all of us. So in its current state, it's also affecting all of us. I think our economy has gotten here because of certain decisions that our leaders are taking that are not, I always say they were short-sighted. But I believe that as a country, we need to all come together, rally around, and ensure that our economy gets back on track.
If you say that the decisions that the Ghanaian government took are short-sighted decisions, what are you referencing?
Well, we have always stated, and I have always believed, that whether we like it or not, political decisions affect businesses. And so when you have a country that went into collapsing banks with that kind of huge sums of money, and banks have been collapsed, other banks have been formed, the economy had to suffer from these kind of decisions. I think I have always maintained that the government would have done better by not collapsing those banks, because, you know, people got laid off. Families had to struggle, and once one aspect of the economy faces such challenges, it becomes imperative that all the other sectors will have problems. So I believe that these kind of policies, not only that one, for example, we're going back to the IMF now. When we started as a country, we were told that we would never go back to IMF. It was a good thing that we left the IMF program. But here we are, we're going back again. So you ask yourself, why are we going back again? It means that there were certain things that we did along the line that did not inure to the benefit of the Ghanaian economy.
It's interesting you mentioned the banking sector cleanup exercise, because this is one of the things that the IMF, for that matter, if you read the IMF Article 4 reports, it tells you that it's one of the things that they were happy that the government of Ghana had done in terms of stabilizing the banking sector in the country. And so it's interesting that you would want to highlight that as an issue that you feel has brought us to where we are.
It's one of the many issues that I think has brought us where we are. Reading Article 4 also, you would also have to put your mind to the fact that if the Ghanaian government or the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana had done things in a more prudent way. I'm saying this because in doing business, you look at prudent ways, fiscal ways, and you look at putting common knowledge into getting things done. So I think, and I believe that most of us think that way, that if we had looked at it from a different perspective, I'm not saying the cleanup was not good, it was good. But if we had looked at it from a different perspective, we would not be saying the stories we are saying today.
Okay.
So for me, that is where I see it from.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's come to the other issue you raised about the decisions that we have taken. And we all know, again, if you read the World Bank's reports, if you read the IMF's reports, if you read Bloomberg and all the financial, websites, they're all talking about the impact of COVID-19. You are in South Africa. We have seen how COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine war, has impacted on your economy. We have had situations whereby you have to do with load shedding in South Africa. Unemployment is a, excuse my language, a crazy issue in South Africa. And so we have all been badly hit. And so is it not a bit unfair, seeing that even where you stay that you're doing business, these are things that pertain as well?
Well, you cannot run away from the Russia-Ukraine war. You cannot run away from COVID. COVID did a lot to reset the world's economy backwards. We understand that. But most economies are recovering. South Africa, where I'm coming from, like you said, unemployment is ballooning. It's at an alarming proportion in South Africa. It's the same in Ghana. It's the same in most of African countries. But what I'm saying, and I believe that with everything that COVID had brought, with everything that Russia-Ukraine war has brought, I think a bit of craftiness on the part of the managers of every economy in the world. South Africa is doing very well. South Africa has recovered from the shocks of COVID. If you look at their economy,
it's recovering.
It's recovering.
Yes.
And so the recovery rate is what we are looking at.
But we're also recovering. Just a few weeks ago, we're talking about the CD exchanging for 15 to $1. Now it's around 8, 9, thereabout. Let's say even 9. Let's work with 9.
It's gone beyond that.
Let me give you the Bank of Ghana's interbank rates.
That is where we as a people sometimes, okay, the Bank of Ghana rate will tell you that it's 9 point something.
Okay.
I go to the bank to do a transaction and I tell them that the Bank of Ghana says the rate is 9 point something. The bank tells me that it's 11. So the regulator has his own figures. The banks that are supposed to listen to the regulator, they also have their own figures. So which of the figures are we going to go work with?
Okay.
The city is recovering, yes. And we have stated that nobody takes credit for the city's recovery. Why do we say that? because we are looking at all the factors that are near to the economy that made the cedi to depreciate at the value it depreciated last year. We were told by His Excellency the President that his measures have made the cedi start to gain. That was somewhere before the Christmas festivities. Today, can he come back and say the same thing?
Now, let me contextualize the conversation for our viewers and our listeners this evening so that they understand the conversation, because I described you as a business person and then a political individual. So, but I didn't tell them who you are politically. So politically, he is the chairman of the Council of Elders of NDC South Africa, so that the conversation will be properly situated in context, so they would understand the views that are being expressed. But if you talk about the return to the IMF and the insistence of the NPP administration that they were not going to go to the IMF, one of the key proponents of go to the IMF, where we are, this is where we are going to, was the NDC.
Of course.
The members of parliament in NDC were the ones who were hammering that go to the IMF, where we are, this is where we are headed. Because
we saw the ditch that the country was going into. We needed somebody to tell the people, to tell those that are managing the economy that, look, there's danger ahead. Because you see, what the NDC minority did in parliament was to let the MPP know that it's nation building. If the economy is bad, it's not only bad for MPP members, it's not only bad for NDC members, it's bad for all of us. So there should be some kind of curtailment in what is happening. So when we say go to IMF, we knew they were going to give us policies and we were going to regulate ourselves within those frameworks. So going to the IMF, it's to our benefit, yes. But going to the IMF, like I insisted from the start, was an avoidable situation. We needed not go back to them. But again, like you said, Russia, Ukraine, COVID, we can say in a nutshell that these are the reasons why we've gone back to the IMF. They were natural causes that the government of Ghana had no hand in. But again, have we looked at how prudent that we needed to be in our expenditure, that we didn't, that made us go through this?
Prudence in expenditure. So you have, for instance, and I'm speaking as how a party communicator would speak, or a government communicator would speak. They will tell you that they are building industries in the country, one district, one factory. They are building that. They will tell you they are building medical facilities. They'll tell you they are building schools. They'll tell you they are building roads. And I can tell you from here, from let's say in Sawom to Apedra Junction. Now you drive and you are your own single lane. They will tell you about other community-based projects they've done in terms of road infrastructure, which has a toll on the finances of the economy. They will tell you about the burden of the salaries they have to pay at the end of every month. Are these not regular? Are these not visible? Free SHS, for instance, which we are told costs us over 6 billion.
Yeah. My simple answer to that is every government has got expenses that you have to make. And I agree that they have made expenses. Brilliant ideas that you've mentioned. One district, one factory, hospitals, schools.
Ambulances.
Yes,
over 275 of them.
Brilliant ideas.
We have the, what do you call it, blood delivery system, the Self-Line project.
Brilliant ideas.
Digital economy.
Brilliant idea. But let me ask you a simple question.
Do ask me.
How much revenue have we made compared to the expenditure that we've made as a country?
We all know there is always a deficit in budget planning.
That's always a deficit.
Yes, 2022 we had projected that we're going to raise over 100 billion and that we're going to spend over 137 billion. Okay. That's in 2022.
So there's a deficit of 37
There is always
billion.
A deficit when it comes to the
planning. There's a deficit of 37 billion. Yes. All right. Then you go into the aspect of monies that we've raised on the on Eurobond, monies that the loans that we've taken as a country. Compare those loans that we've taken. We've gone to the bond market how many times? Several times. We've made a lot of money from the bond market. Our rates were ridiculous, but then we had to accept it because the country needed money. My question is, we are hearing all those things that you've inured, that they are doing this, they are doing that, they are doing that, which is every government's responsibility. You have to provide for the people. Look at the revenue against the expenses. That's the question as Ghanaians we need to look at.
Is that suggestive? And forgive me if I'm dealing with you now as a political animal.
I'm okay.
So, is that to suggest
Yeah.
that during the NDC's tenure, we didn't have budget deficit? Is that to suggest that within the NDC's tenure, we didn't have to make certain expenditures which Ghanaians raised concerns about? We didn't have a backlog of payments to contractors?
Yes.
We didn't have a backlog of payments to teachers
Okay.
and to nurses?
Okay.
We didn't have a situation where in 2015, getting in 2016, we have medical doctors who agitated
Yes.
to be pushed onto the mainstream.
Yes.
Is that to say these did not happen?
That is why the NDC was voted out by the people. So the NDC did certain things that the Ghanaian people said, look, when you are talking about the expenses the NDC government made, you've forgotten also to talk about the huge infrastructure project that the NDC did. You've forgotten to also speak about the things that NDC did that gave Ghanaians the reprieve that they needed. Things NDC did that made the lives of Ghanaians very easy. We are not saying that. But what I'm asking you here and now is that on on election day, Ghanaians went to the polls and they said, look, we don't want the NDC because the NDC did A, B, C, D. Now we want the MPP to come. Based on you saying, or the MPP administration saying that we'll get it better, we'll do it better. So the comparison to say that yesteryears there were budget deficit. So if I am doing worse, I'm better than what the NDC did. It's a stagnated form of argument.
I would agree with you to a certain extent,
Yes.
but you agree with me that is why data is important,
Very
because you gather data
Yeah.
to be able to measure your growth.
Yes.
And so if I am referencing the NDC in this context, I'm referencing the NDC in terms of your issues you raise about government expenditure and deficits.
Yes.
And so that data is for comparison purposes.
Yes.
Not necessarily because we want to do what do you call it? You said this and you said that.
Yes.
We want Ghanaians, as they are watching us this evening, to have an appreciation of the issues. Yes, indeed, the Ghanaians decided to vote the NDC out and put the MPP there.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that we can't reference.
No, we can refer. I'm not saying.
For instance, the former president comes to say that when he is voted into power,
Yes.
he's going to ensure that we amend the constitution of this country.
Yes.
And certain issues therein, he would rectify them. And somebody would say that you were in government when your previous government, the Atamiosis government, had done a constitutional review.
Yes.
A report had been given on that, where they implemented. So these are points where you reference
Yes.
to bring us back to the conversation
Very
being
well.
situated properly.
Very well.
So you get where I'm going.
I get where you're
with
going.
the conversation.
I get it.
Now let's stay a little bit away from the politics.
Yes.
With where we are, unemployment on our backs, scarcity of resources, money,
Yeah.
because of the devaluation of our currency and inflation and all. Being a businessman, a chairman, and I'm looking at your website, chairman of a very, 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 very big, thriving business, Allied Consortiums. You are an oil and gas company. I would want for you to share your experience with me. How is this dream possible for us in Ghana?
It's very possible. I recall having an interview back in South Africa with one of your very good journalists here, and I said, look, the problem I've seen with the Ghanaian situation is that we have most people that are learned, but they don't have that working skills. They don't have that thing that will let them become entrepreneurs and help. Look, if we are to grow not only as a country, if we are to grow as a people, if we are to grow as one universe, being an entrepreneur is the way to go. I believe that we need to encourage more. We need to have institutions that will help young people that come out of universities, young people that come out of our polytechnics and our training colleges and our medical schools and legal professions to be able to network among themselves and ensure that we don't always look for employment in the government sector. We come up with ideas that, you see, the problem I have realized in Ghana is that our venture capital systems are not working. So
Okay.
people have got brilliant ideas. People have got brilliant visions, but they are not able to implement it. And so from South Africa, where I come from, where I work actually, their systems are different. Their systems work in the truest of its sense that once you have a knowledge, once you have a business idea that you can convince the company that is the government institution that is tax forming companies, once you are able to prove to them that this is my idea, this is my business plan, this is my short, long, medium-term goals, they help. They help you with the finance you need. It's them saying that we want to empower young people, we want to empower the black people. And you see, in South Africa, they don't only do it for their citizens, they're even doing it for us, foreigners. Once you come to them and you say, I have this brilliant idea, the only caution they give, or the only reason they would support you, is that they have what they call the BE concept, the black empowerment concept. So in your company, if you have 30% foreign workers, you should have more than 50% South Africans. Okay. It's employment for them. And they would give you the support that you... So I think these are things that Ghana can learn from. Back in the days, I saw the National Youth Authority. Now I'm told it's YEA. These are institutions that need to be beefed up. These are institutions that need to be supported so that they have the capital that is needed to help young people who have graduated from school, who are sitting at home looking for jobs from government. It doesn't work like that in the 21st century. Where we are now, it's about entrepreneurship, because if your economy is to grow, if your country is to grow, the dependency of the youth or graduates on government employment, it's no longer the way to go. Rather, we need to come up with plans, objective businesses that would encourage and empower our young people. I think when we do that, our economy will be in great shape.
The idea of entrepreneurship and the mentality of white-collar jobs waiting for us after completion of our tertiary courses and all, do people even have an understanding and appreciation of what entrepreneurship is? And in this case, I'm playing both countries, South Africa and Ghana. Because I've been to SA, and I've seen young, energetic guys loitering about. I have seen people with certificates looking for jobs and no jobs. Do we have an understanding of what entrepreneurship is? These two countries, Ghana, South Africa?
I think South Africa has brilliant entrepreneurship ideas, a bit more than Ghana from where I stand. Okay. But I think also, like you said, there are people working on the streets of South Africa. But you see, their dependence on government to provide them with jobs, it's not as high as it is here in Ghana, because the institutions there that are responsible for helping young people grow and become entrepreneurs are there. There are a lot of them. In Ghana, what I've realized is that people come up with brilliant ideas. People graduate from the universities and they have brilliant ideas. All we need is that we need to get our institutions to work. All we need is that central government should say that we are going to set up funds, we are going to set up initiatives that will only be there to help entrepreneurial development. I have said that one thing I would look so much to, and I'll be so happy, is seeing any government that comes up with a particular ministry that is responsible for developing and ensuring that entrepreneurship is the way for Ghana. That will be a brilliant idea, because at that point, then everybody will pitch up with their ideas. We network, we form associations, we form groups of people who have brilliant ideas that we think that when a little bit of push in terms of funding is given, we would be great as a country.
The educational system is also paramount in this conversation, because the psyche of the student, when properly worked on, would not allow him to leave, let's say, the university and he's coming out to look for a job, but he's coming out to come and create jobs. And as we progress with the conversation, we'll come a bit back to the political angle, but for now, I just want us to do some proper conversation. Shouldn't we be looking at our educational system more in this country? Again, with the benefit of the South African system and then the Ghanaian system? Is the educational system not a matter we should be focusing
I think
a lot more attention in?
you make it so beautiful. That is the point. In most of African countries, what I've realized is that, for example, you go to universities and then the learning of English is compulsory, and the learning of courses like agriculture and others are not compulsory. So that is why we end up having students who speak good English but then with no food. Look, we need to revisit what we learn in the universities, what we learn in the polytechnics, what we learn in the technical universities, and also the training colleges. The system should be that we are learning to become entrepreneurs when we conclude university, if we don't have opportunities to work in the government sector. We are told that there's a cap on employment. So it means that people that have completed universities, people that have completed polytechnics now, and they want to go into employment and they are only looking at the government sector, they wouldn't have jobs. But if we have a way that our institutions integrate the learning of or becoming an entrepreneur in their systems, these people that are waiting on governments to employ them, they would come up with groups, teams that will say, okay, we have this brilliant idea. Let's go to the Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development or Entrepreneurial Skills Development. Tell them this is the idea we have. If we can be able to be supported by a fund that you pay back. And that's how it works in South Africa.
They say we have a U-Start. We have a U-Start, fund, which you can access if you're a young entrepreneur that you want to start. That fund is there that you can access. Yeah. That is what we are told. But how do we make our educational system support these beautiful ideas that we are discussing this morning? Because at some point you mentioned polytechnics, but unfortunately there are no polytechnics anymore. Yes, the NDC started the progressive transformation of polytechnics to the technical universities. And so polytechnics, which are supposed to be focused on technical education, no longer there. Now they are allowed to do other, courses, the social sciences and all of that. It's all allowed. And so how do we ensure that all these things prep up the minds of students so that by the time they are out of school, they are ready? Whether there is a government funding opportunity or not, they can survive.
Well, I think the curriculums in these institutions need to be revised because everywhere in the world that revision is taking place. It's no longer the dependence on knowledge from school, and then from school you go straight into government employment. No country does that anymore. Every other country is ensuring that there is a diversification. You go to school, you learn practical skills. It should be also in Ghana, where when I conclude or when I complete my degree program from the University of Ghana or Cape Coast or Kumasi, I should be able to say, with my knowledge, with a bit of funding, with a bit of networking between myself and another student that has this part of the idea that I don't have, we should be able to employ people and grow the economy. It all starts from us revisiting the curriculums that we have in our various institutions. And I think it's a discussion that we should have, devoid of the political coloration, and say that, look, it's the future of Ghana we are talking about. It's the future of our beautiful country that we are talking about. Most importantly, when our people are employed, youth unemployment, for me, has become a national security threat. Because a lot of the vices that will happen in this country are because we are not employed as young people. Young people are looking for jobs. So they end up cutting corners to get whatever they want to do. But if the means is there for us to grow them together from the universities, from the polytechnics, or the
technical
universities that we're talking about, and that we can get funding for them, and that we can pitch ideas and say, look, you are able to produce A, brilliant idea. Kofi is also able to produce B, brilliant ideas. When you add A to B, you can be able to do something great. Let's pitch you together. Let's help you. The two of you come up with that brilliant idea, you employ other people. That is how you grow as a country. So if we are to achieve this objective of making our country that entrepreneurial state, then I think that from the curriculums in the universities, in our institutions, it should be geared towards this idea of empowering people for them to finish these institutions and be able to produce and contribute to the economy's growth rather than waiting to be employed in the government sector.
We'll be shifting the bandwidth to politics in a bit. But the youth of Ghana are watching you. And for those of you who would be minded to go and check, your website is www.alliedco.co.za. Real estate, oil and gas, natural gas, electric power, and this is big.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about this company.
All right, so Allied Consortiums is a group of companies that have come together. We into real estate, we into oil and gas, we into information technology, and we're doing all these with a consortium of companies that have come together under one umbrella. That's why we call ourselves the Allied Consortiums. In Ghana, we've just opened a branch, which is Allied Consortiums BE in Ghana as well.
Okay.
What we do is in this diversified fields. Okay. And we believe that our headquarters is in South Africa. Okay. Brilliant jobs that we do there. And we believe that it's time we bring the idea back to Ghana. It's time we integrate the Ghanaian company into the South African company. Look, the oil and gas industry is one thriving industry, like it or not. And I think that with the discovery of oil and gas in Ghana for some years now, we should have been able to have a lot as a country from it. But unfortunately, we don't have a lot of companies, a lot of professionals in this field. And so we're thinking that let's bring the idea back home. Let's get these brilliant guys from the universities that are working for us in South Africa. Let's come up with the ideas that we have in South Africa to Ghana and ensure that we take absolute control of our oil and gas industry as a people. I'm not saying that, look, we would need expertise here and there. Even in South Africa, we still need expertise. But in Ghana, should we do it perfectly well, it should be an avenue that we can say we would employ more people. The real estate industry is also a thriving one. Like I say, in South Africa, you are given all the support, all the push that you need when you want to deal in this real estate industries. Ghana has a lot of deficit in the housing industries, which is there for all of us to see. So what we are doing is to bring in real estate contractors who believe that, look, Ghana is very peaceful. Ghana is where when you invest, you can be able to recoup your money. So that we deal in a lot of these real estate businesses to help our people have affordable housing projects that are affordable. When we say affordable, it should be affordable to every ordinary Ghanaian who has just completed school, who is working and says that, look, I need to get a house. Let's help. That's the concept of the whole Allied Consortium.
Let's talk politics. How are you a businessman and a politician at the same time? How do you shuffle between?
I've always maintained that politicians are businessmen. And I've said this, and I've explained the concept, and I say, look, if you are a businessman and you don't make inputs, for example, into parties' manifestos, into developmental agendas of a country, government will bring in policies that will collapse your business. If, for instance, as a businessman, you are not able to say, look, if you increase VAT to so and so amount, it will cripple my business as a business person. And you speak to the politician for the politician to understand. You can grow as a businessman. So you don't decouple business from politics. But again, politics shouldn't have influences on businesses, where because there is an influence by a political party on a business, that particular business does nothing for anybody apart from that political organization. So for me, the most important thing is that the business aspect should help us develop as a country, should help us develop as a people. And politics should create the conducive environment for businesses to be able to thrive.
So NDC, NDC. So why the NDC?
Well, NDC is the Social Democratic Party. NDC, look, like it or not, it's a party that believes in the a free democracy, a free society where people are able to grow themselves, to open businesses. It's not a property-owning democracy, unfortunately. NDC, it's social. It's diversifications in all aspects of the economy. For me, it's a brilliant idea. I have a lot of friends in the NPP, good friends, more than even in the NEC. But what I've always told them is that, look, my understanding of the NDC, my understanding of the NPP, I'll choose the NDC any day over the NPP, because I believe that my intuition, my goals and objective, and I believe that at a greater knowledge of how I think that this country should be able to grow, I find it conducive under an NDC administration.
Interesting. So, Social Democratic Political Party, a businessman who knows that the world is controlled today by the capitalists.
Yes.
And we know, and we always say that the private sector is the engine of growth. And the capitalists are the ones who virtually are the engine of growth. Why a socialist?
The capitalists are beginning to realize that that notion of capitalism, it's dying down. You know, yesteryears when the capitalists felt that they could control everything and anything, it's gradually being phased out. The reason why I tell you that being a socially democratic party helps more is that the capitalist has got a level that it believes that at this level, I want to deal with people at this level. The socialist believes that I can deal with anybody even from the ground.
Is that true?
Very true. Very true. Because
let
look,
me give you a typical example of.
Give me.
So, the complaints from NDC people. We can't have access to our leaders. We call them, they don't pick.
Yeah.
We don't even see them. And I can cite an example of the Speaker of Parliament today. A big man in your party who makes such a public pronouncement. Even just your recent contest you went to where your chairman was elected and your general secretary was elected. Your general secretary elected today. One of the reasons for which people were campaigning against him was they get elected and we don't see them. So the idea of socialism being with the masses is not true.
The current crop of leaders of the NDC party, I would tell you, just be on the lookout.
I should be on the lookout.
Yes, I'm telling you here.
But I've known Johnson that she didn't get here.
No, let me land. Be on the lookout. Why do I say this? The NDC is coming up with vibrant young people that are. It's happening in the NDC. We will let you see it at a point. But that notion of the people not having access to us, that notion of the big men sitting in the office and when it's time for campaigning, they will come to the grassroots and eat with us. But when they get there, they even pick calls. It's going to be a thing of the past. It's
interesting you're speaking into the future and you're not speaking in the current, in the present. Because you see, I've seen the late Professor John Evans Atomils as president. You're mentioning the youth.
Yeah.
Who empowered the youth? It was during his tenure that we saw the Samuel Kujata Black Press, the James Eugene Boateng and co. being elevated to the state of deputy ministers in this country.
Yes.
And yet, what did we see?
Look, like I say, politics and life are a learning journey. They are a learning journey. Okudzeto Ablakwa was very accessible when he was a deputy minister. Felix Ofosu-Kwakye was very accessible.
Really?
Yeah, he was. He was. You might also believe that they weren't. Look, I have people who tell me today that look, they feel so distant with the current administration when they were campaigning and they wanted to come to power the way things were done. So it's a learning curve, whether you like it or not. There are mistakes that you realize. You were on the pitch. You were not a spectator. So you were not able to see what was wrong. And we have told them now that, look, these are the mistakes you did when you were in government. They were silly mistakes, excuse my language. Don't repeat them when you come back to power. Be accessible to the people. Be there for the people. The people put you there. So don't get into the office and say, I'm busy. I can't pick a call.
We will take a breather. When we come back, you're staying on the NDC, and you'll tell us why you think the notion of Ghanaians today that the MPP and the NDC are the same. Only difference is the ideology. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. And welcome back to Fact Sheets live on ETV, live on NISIM 95.9 and 100.1 Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My handle is ETV Ghana, and you can share your thoughts, your views, and your comments with us. So the MPP and the NDC, if I were to activate the phone lines now, Ghanaians will tell you guys are the same.
I've said this. Anybody that says this statement to me, that the NDC and the MPP are the same, is a disappointed MPP member.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not an MPP.
I'm not saying you.
Yes,
but
I'm not disappointed. But I'm a Ghanaian who thinks that MPP and NDC are the same.
No.
It is not about not about us.
Yeah.
But it's about your interests as political parties.
Very well. Look, the NDC's tenure in office saw a lot of developments, because every government is supposed to develop. That is the mandate that people give to you. But you see, the conditions or the atmospheres during these two different administrations are different. And you can't deny it. As a journalist, you can't deny it.
Tell me, if you give me the examples.
During the NDC era, press freedom, journalists could ask and say whatever they wanted to say without fear, favor, or contradiction.
That's true.
Are you able to do same now?
That's true. For me, I sit here and I speak my mind, but there are others.
Your colleagues?
Yes, my colleagues. You see, and this is where the variance comes.
Yes.
Because the profession requires a certain level of etiquette and principles from you.
Yes.
There are certain things that I wouldn't sit here and say.
Yes.
You ask yourself the people who claim that a certain government has come after them.
Yes.
What do they say? What pronouncements do they make?
We were in this country when Manasseh Azuriawuni came up with an investigative piece, said whatever he wanted to say against the president, called him names. Take it from that yesteryears to
You're talking about the Ford Expeditions issue?
Saga.
Okay, go ahead.
You all trumpeted it. Nobody said Anas should be arrested. No, Manasseh should be arrested. Nobody say Manasseh should not be free to walk around and do anything. Today, do you believe that you can make... How many people have been picked up for making certain disparaging comments about His Excellency President Nana Addo?
Fair enough. That's a fair point.
We need to realize that in every governance period, you don't only look at the economy, you look at all other aspects. You look at aspects where you make the three arms of government work. Now, when the three arms of government work, the country grows. So if you have an executive down-pressing the other sectors or the other arms of government, obviously the economy doesn't grow. So these are some of the comparisons that, like you said, if we need to make those comparisons in the field of finance and say the data says this, the data says that, we should look at this also and say that, look, our press freedom has gone down. This is a period where our president assented to the Right to Information Bill. So we thought it would have been better than when it was not assented to. Unfortunately, it's become worse. It's become worse.
But you know when Ghanaians speak about the MPP and the NDC being the same, that's not where our minds are. Our minds are on wealth creation and the acquisition of wealth by politicians and your slogans that you throw at us that you are not able to fulfill. You know that's where Ghanaians think of when they say that you guys are the same.
And I can tell Ghanaians that they've realized from a political perspective, they've realized the mistakes they made by voting out the John Mahama administration, because when John Mahama was president, we were told that he was doing family and friends business. What can you say today? If family and friends under John Mahama, if those few people that were employed that didn't have direct relationship with him were called a family and friends government, Just look back to the...
But Ghanaians had the opportunity,
Yes.
if you're talking about family and friends, in 2020, seeing that all these family and friends people have been in government, and yet they didn't change them.
Well, the elections of 2020, we still have our concerns, but then the Supreme Court has spoken, so we respect the decision of the Supreme Court.
But you still have the concerns,
Yes.
and just before you went for the contest, your now chairman, General Secretary then, had made public pronouncements about your ill-preparedness for the elections.
He spoke the truth.
Yes, that's the truth, but you're not ready for the elections.
Our chairman now spoke the truth.
Yes.
So as a leader and yourself being a leader, there are certain things that you have to do as a leader to ensure that your base remains focused, committed, and believe in you being a leader. What President Mahama did to assure the base that, look, we have a good case. We've done A, B, C, D. Our projections are that we are winning. He did the right thing as a leader. So if the party...
At the time he knew that you guys were not collating much?
At that time that he knew that we were not collating much, if you go into the... Which I'm not ready to go into those details here.
Why not? This is a public conversation. You should be able to go into the areas.
Dr. Kwesibotre report is there. You
Yes.
see that from the Kwesibotre... No.
You guys shelved it.
We've implemented most of the points that the Kwesibotre report indicated. Now, a party is supposed to go into a contest prepared on all fronts. Unfortunately, we missed out on one front.
All right. It's unfortunate, Mr. Kwashi, that our time is very much fast spent.
Very
and
well.
I'm hoping that we would have a second, bout of this conversation before you leave Ghana, so that we can touch on some of these, because these are the things that go in the long run to empower us as Ghanaians. But I'm grateful that we extended an invitation and you joined us tonight on
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay.
And I thank you as well as a viewer for joining us this evening, on the Happy Morning Show. I just finished a show this morning on the Happy Morning Show, and so it's still at the back of my mind. He is the chair of the Allied Consortiums in South Africa, and he's also a strong NDC member, South Africa, a chairman as well of the Council of Elders of the party in South Africa, sharing some views with us nationally and then about his political party. I wish you a beautiful evening, even as we prepare for another show, God willing, tomorrow morning on the Happy Morning Show. Do make it at 5:30 a.m. sharp, as my crew and I will be back.